Okay, we are going to review our special right triangles that you learned back in geometry. And if you remember, our special right triangles are the 45-45-90 triangle and the 30-60-90 triangle. So just as a review, first of all, we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. Remember that the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And we're going to use that to find the length of the hypotenuse of each triangle. Now remember, the hypotenuse is always opposite your right angle. It's always your longest side. So if I want to find x in this, I know that 6 squared plus 6 squared is going to equal x squared. And then 36 plus 36 equals x squared. Then when I add 36 together, I get what is that? 102 equals x squared. It's not 102, 36 and 36. It's 72, a little different there. 72 equals x squared. And then to find x, I need to take the square root of 72. And we don't want a decimal, we want the exact answer. Well, I know that 36, if I break this down, 36 times 2 gives me 72, and 36 is a perfect square. So this actually breaks down, x is equal to 6 square root of 2, because this 36, the 6 comes out, and the 2 is going to stay underneath the square root sign. Okay, so let's do it again for this triangle. I know this is my hypotenuse because it's the longest side and it's also opposite the right angle. So in this one I know 3 squared plus 3 squared equals y squared. 9 plus 9 equals y squared. 18 equals y squared. And when I take the square root of both sides, then I get y equals the square root of 18. But the square root of 18 is 9 times 2, and 9 is a perfect square, so that's 3 radical 2. So just from these two examples, do you see a pattern? Okay, and they told us up here that this is a 45-45. This is 45 degrees, this is 45 degrees. And same thing with this angle and this angle. The hypotenuse is always the same as the leg multiplied by the square root of 2. So on the bottom of the sheet, for 45-45-90 triangles, both legs are congruent, and the length of the hypotenuse is always the length of the leg times square root of 2. So let's fill in the blanks here. If you are missing the blank, multiply a blank by square root of 2. Okay, so if we're missing the hypotenuse, we want to multiply a leg by the square root of 2 to find our missing side. Going backwards, if you're missing a leg, divide the hypotenuse by the square root of 2. Okay, so if we're given a leg, we know that the hypotenuse is just that leg times square root of 2. But if we're going backwards and they gave us the hypotenuse and we want a leg, we're going to divide by the square root of 2. Okay, so let's practice that. Let's find the value of a. Okay, so if that's a, I don't know why that keeps coming up. So this would be the same thing as x, this would be the same thing as x, and this would be x times the square root of 2 if we followed our little rules. So we know what x is. To find this right here, we're just going to multiply that by the square root of 2. So 9 square root of 2 would be my hypotenuse. All right, going backwards on number 2, I'm given my hypotenuse and I want x. Remember, this is x square root of 2. So to go backwards to find side k, I'm going to divide 2 square root of 2 divided by the square root of 2, so that k is equal to 2. Okay. In number 3, okay, we have to assume these are 45, or we're going to assume these are 45-45 triangles for 3 and 4. And I think they forgot to actually fill in your missing sides here. this is side S, okay, if this is S, let's find this missing side right here. Okay, even so, we're not even gonna, let's call this side X. Well, yeah, we'll call it side X. So remember, if this is X, this is X, this is X squared root of 2. To find this side right here, we're going to, well, they didn't give us any information for this, did they? I'm gonna erase this real quick. Okay, let's say, I'll just give you a number here. Let's say that S is 2. So the hypotenuse is 2, and I want to find this side right here. So since I'm given the hypotenuse and I want a leg, I'm going to take the hypotenuse and divide it by the square root of 2. Okay, and for right now, I'll let you leave it like that. Normally, you wouldn't leave a square root in the bottom. Okay, if I did want to get rid of that, I would multiply the top and bottom by square root of 2. 2 times square root of 2 is 2 square root of 2. 2 times 2 is square root of 4, but that's 2. So do you see that my answer there is 2 square root of 2? Okay, so find the value of, let's say that this side is 4. Okay, so let's say this is side A, this is side B, and this is side C. Okay, so let's find out what B is. Since this is a 45, 45, B would have to also equal 4, and side C would equal 4 times the square root of 2. So those are our special right triangles. Okay, let's go to the 30, 60, 90 triangles. In a 30, 60, 90, we're going to use the Pythagorean Theorem again to find the missing side. So I'm going to start with this one. X squared plus 3 squared equals 6 squared. X squared plus 9 equals 36. When I subtract 9 from both sides, I get 27. Take the square root, and I get x equals the square root of 27, but 27 is 9 times 3, and 9 is a perfect square. So the perfect square of 9 is 3, and I have a 3 left over. So that's actually 3 square root of 3. Okay, let's do this one. My sides, it's always 4 squared plus y squared equals 8 squared. Remember, your hypotenuse is always opposite your right angle and always your longest side. So I have 16 plus y squared equals 64. Subtract 16 from both sides, so 64 minus 16 is 48. Take the square root of both sides, and y would equal 48 is what? 16 times 3? 16 is a perfect square, so when I simplify that, that's going to be 4 square root of 3. So do we see a pattern? All right, so let's see what the pattern is. For 30, 60, 90 triangles, the hypotenuse is always twice the shortest side. Okay, and here's how I always think of it. I always find my 30-degree angle. My 30-degree angle is always x. Then my other side is always x times square root of 3, and my hypotenuse is always 2 times x. So it's x, x squared root of 13, and 2x. That's the rule for 30, 60, 90. So let's do some of these together. Find the values of A and B. Okay, so what did they give us? They gave us, and I always like to label my side. I always find the side opposite 30 degrees. So this side is x. That means this side is x squared root of 3, and this side is 2x. So A would be x times square root of 3, and x is 11, so that's 11 square root of 3. B is always 2 times x, so that's going to be 22. All right, so let's label this triangle. Okay, here's my 90-degree angle. I'm going to assume that my 30-degree angle is here and 60 degrees goes here, and they will label these for you. So always find 30 degrees, I always go opposite that. So opposite 30 degrees, this is going to be my x. This is going to be x squared of 3, and this is going to be 2x. Hypotenuse is always 2x. So if my hypotenuse was 24, then this has to be half of that, 12. And once I have that, then my other side is 12 times square root of 3. And then we have one more. Find the values of t and s. So here's my 30-degree angle. I'm going to label it. Opposite my 30-degree angle is always my shortest side, x. Then my other leg is x squared of 3. And my hypotenuse is always 2x. So if I want to find t, okay, that gave me x squared of 3. So what do I have to do? Let's find s first. S is just going to be, what, 2? Because if s is x, and this is x squared of 3, that means that s has to be 2, which means t is going to be 2 times that. So t is 2 times x. Hang on one second. Whoops. Okay, sorry. So t is 2 times x, so that's going to have to be 4. Okay, and that is it for today.